joining. Hold on. Okay, hold on. I think I'm okay, Laura, hold on. Okay, I'm good. Bye.
You're good?
Hey there, Ryan.
Hi,
How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. So I have been assigned to teach this class today. So
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm just gonna wait for people to hop on.
That is and how painful that is. I mean, like all the other side.
Sorry, things are so released. Going to hand privileges over to you. Okay. Okay. Okay, it's 1:05, so I think we should get started now. Hey, Chicago, no mic, no cam. Thanks for the class. Okay, great. If we could quickly, I just want to do a quick introduction to know who I'm speaking with. I am Eric. I am out of the O'Hare office, but now we're all out of the same office. I have been doing this now for almost 4 years. I've written a decent amount of contracts over my time, not as many as I would like, but hey, I bet everyone at any level can say that. Before I start the class, if you could all please just unmute yourself. It would be great if you could turn the camera on. If you're comfortable doing that for just a moment, just introduce yourself, your time in the business, and what you're looking to get out of this class, and that'll help me, please. So, Ryan, if you want to just kind of give me a quick little tidbit.
Well, I'm Ryan Sherman. I'm out of Lakeview, and I'm looking to just always learn more to see if there's something I'm potentially missing. It's always good to be as familiar with the contract as possible. And I signed up in was that May 17th, February 17th, I believe.
Okay. How's it been for you joining the ranks right before COVID?
It's been good.
Good.
Just learning all the ways that I can connect with people and really get my information out there for people.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, guys. So, like I said, I would love it if you guys could turn the camera on so I could know who I'm speaking with. That would be awesome. But if you can't do that, at least unmute yourselves and just let me know like your time in the business and whatnot, just like Ryan did. Chris, could you please? Anyone?
Hi, this is Anissa. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Hi, Anissa.
Hi. Sorry, my apologies. I'm not camera ready. I am used to working from home 100% of the time. So I've been with the Lakeview office for maybe 4 or 5 months now. However, I am trying to transition. I would love to transition from my full-time day job to real estate full-time. So I am trying to learn when I have time here and there from my day job. So that's why I'm attending. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. It looks like we have 2 Anissas on here. I think that was Anissa Cook I just spoke with, and now I'm speaking to Anissa Hassan. Am I correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so fire away, second Anissa.
Sure. I'm Anissa Hassan. I actually haven't met an Anissa in a long time, so hi. I have been in this for a very short time. I came over from government work and intelligence. I was living in Toronto, working in Toronto, moved to Chicago. I wanted to get into real estate a long time ago, but then pandemic hit, so I kind of waited. So I'm very new to it. I've only been with Keller Williams for a month.
Welcome.
So thank you. Just starting up a lot of things and learning a lot on my own. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that very much. All right. Chris, are you around, sir? Okay. Chris is just doing his own thing, and that's cool. And then it looks like Jim, I know you can't, or it says Dell. I'm confused why it says that. It doesn't matter though. But Jim came to KW from Lakeview with Mario. Need more exposure to 7.0. Okay, fair enough. All right, so I am not the most tech literate person. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Tell me when you guys can see my screen, the contract on your screens.
I see it.
Okay, cool. I kindly ask to stay muted just so we don't get background noise, but at any point, just come on, unmute, and if you have any questions. Try not to do it on the chat window just because I am focused on the screen that I'm presenting here. And here's Manny. Manny, our favorite commercial agent, is hopped on. Okay, so hey guys. So real quick background, the multi-board 7.0, really the entire transaction is laid out on this contract. It's version 7.0 because in the past, like software updates, they keep updating it. Years back, it was like 2 or 3 pages. And as things go awry over time, the attorneys involved at the real estate board keep adding on to this, and now we're up to 13 pages. And it really covers, everything from beginning to end of the transaction. So it's important to familiarize yourself with this. When you are representing buyers, it is your job to fill this out. This is a contract, but technically it is only an offer until the two sides to agree and it becomes fully binding. It becomes a fully executed contract. So anytime you just, write the figures on, send it over to the listing agent, it's an offer, not technically a contract until the seller signs. I think you understand that. So let's just start off and we'll go through the contract. Tell me if you can see my mouse. Does that come well onto your computer screen? Okay. So the first paragraph, and all these big numbers here in legal speak, these are paragraph numbers. And I think there's 39 paragraphs. Yeah, 39 paragraphs in the entire document. So when I say paragraph, I'm talking about the legal paragraph. Paragraph 1, the parties. It's very simple. It's the buyer name and the seller name. Obviously, representing the buyers, you will know your buyers' names. My quick little advice would be always get their middle initials. I usually get that right when we start the home search. I'll be like, just full name, so I have your middle initial. That way, when it's time to write the contract, I already have that, and I put their middle initial in there because there could be multiple Eric Bohns, multiple Nisa Hassans, and multiple Manny. There's only one Manny Rogaldo, but there's multiple. You just want to be careful because the attorneys are going to add that later. You might as well do that ahead of time. Seller names, you won't know the seller's name, but you really will in most cases, because you're going to have them also sign the disclosures, which we may go over later if we have time, but you can always find the seller's name usually on the disclosure. So I try to be helpful and put the seller's name on there ahead of time. Why? Because the more helpful you are in submitting your offer to the other side, that you're conveying your willingness to be cooperative and helpful to the other side. They may like your offer more than the other offers if everything's the same. If you're giving off the appearance that you're easy to work with and you're helpful, and the other one is the same price, but their agent's being a pain in the butt, they may just go with you instead. All right. Line 4 on that same paragraph, it says, if dual agency applies, check here. Dual agency, you probably learned this in real estate school, right? Is when you represent the seller and the buyer in the same transaction. So you're only going to check that if that is the case. Otherwise, you skip on. Paragraph 2, the real estate. It's very simple. You put in all the information about the property itself. Address, if it's a condo, the unit number, city, state, all that stuff. And when you're filling out a contract, you can do it by hand if you want to go nuts. But what I always do, I'll go into the MLS, and I can show you this offline when you have a contract. I'll show you how to do it. But you go into the MLS, and when you're in the property, on the right-hand side, there's a pull-down menu, and it says write a contract. So that's nice. I always do that, and then it pre-populates the address on paragraph 2 and the address, which is required at the bottom of every page. So that'll already be done for you when you go through the MLS, saving you a lot of steps. And so that's going to be filled in automatically there. Okay. And tell me if I'm going too fast or if I'm just telling you stuff you already know and you want me to skip ahead. Line 10, it says permanent index number. Every parcel of property is going to have what we call a PIN number. And we're going to fill that in here. It's really important that we get the right PIN number, because if you have the wrong one, it's going to have to get fixed down the line, and you want it to be right. The next is single family. You have the option, not the option, you're required to fill one of these 3 boxes. Single family attached, meaning it's a condo or a townhome. Single family detached, which means it's a single family freestanding home, or if you're making an offer on a multi-unit. So is it more than just one unit? You're buying the entire building. That's what it's asking there. Okay, designated parking. All right, so in instances where there's parking included and it's not a single family home, okay, you're like buying into a condo building, you're very simply going to put the number of spaces that are being conveyed with the sale. And then the next one says that identified as space numbers. Lots of times we don't know what the space numbers are. I will usually just put the unit number in here, and just if the attorney wants to change that down the line, he or she is going to. And then location, I'll just write parking lot, parking garage, whatever that may be. Okay. The second line here in the parking, is it a deeded space? So would this parking spot carry its own PIN number? And so that it's coming with the purchase, but it's actually accounted as its own piece of property, that one parking space. You're going to have that more like in the downtown condo market, in those big parking garages. You're not going to see that all the time, but be on the lookout for it. Okay, so that's one option. That's a deeded parking space. Second is limited common element. That means they get a parking spot, but it's in either a lot or a garage, and the space isn't assigned. First come, first served. With unit 1, you get 1 spot, 2 spots, whatever it may be. The last is assigned space. You know, is that space assigned to the unit? Pretty self-explanatory. The next line is designated storage. Everything I just talked about as far as the parking, the storage unit plays exactly the same. And they're not talking about like storage in the unit. They're talking like if you live in a multifamily building, do the units have their own storage unit in a communal spot? Lots of times in the back of the building, close to the walkout basement or wherever it may be. Okay. All right, so the next paragraph is fixtures and personal property added at no value. So here, we don't want to make assumptions that the seller is just going to give stuff away with the home. All right, we want to make sure it's in writing that all of these little check boxes, we as the buyer are going to go check these to make sure that we say we want them to come with the property. So on the final walkthrough, if we come in and the refrigerator's missing or the doors are missing or someone decided to take the fans with them, we want to make sure that the way we are making when we're making the offer today, we want the house to be in the same order when we actually purchase it. Okay, and that's why we take our time to go check these. And sometimes you'll go on showings with buyers. Maybe you saw like 10 properties that day. And then it's time, they're like, oh, we like property number 5. Let's make an offer. You may even forget what it had. So in every listing in the MLS, the listing agent is going to do their job and put this stuff out there ahead of time. Now they may make mistakes. It's human error. They may omit something accidentally. So you have to be careful and just keep good mental notes of the properties you see to make sure you're checking off everything that your buyer is going to want to have. And if you forget, lots of times I'll just go to the MLS and look at the pictures. I'll be like, did that have a ceiling fan in the master bedroom? I don't remember. And then lots of times that can be answered that way. Lines 29 and 30 are of significance because they're items that aren't included up here, but we want to talk about them. So line 29, items included at no added value. This is where I would put in, let's say you love the house, your buyers want the house, and there's maybe like, I don't know, like an in-ground swimming pool or above ground swimming pool, really. Or if there is some piece of personal property tied to the property that is attached to the property, you would put it there. Okay. And sometimes like maybe they had like a nice breakfast bar, an island, but you can see it's movable. It's not actually attached to the property. Maybe they don't even want to take it with it. It cannot hurt to ask if you want a certain piece of property. Anything that looks like it would have very like sentimental significance to that homeowner, I'm not going to ask for that. But that's where you can ask for that. A good example is I was helping a buyer and they really liked the doghouse that was in the backyard. There's no doghouse on here, but I put doghouse, knowing that the buyer probably didn't want to take the doghouse with them. It was huge. So I put that there, and so my buyers got a doghouse. Same principle for items not included. If there's something just in the house you don't like, it looks hideous and you don't want it, make sure to put that there. Lots of times that comes with like those big old school projector televisions that like in the 90s before the flat screens. And they weigh like an elephant and you don't want to deal with that. So you make sure you put that in there. Okay. Any questions? Is this good so far? Okay, so the next paragraph is purchase price and payment. Obviously very self-explanatory. You're going to put your purchase price right up there. And then down here, it gets into the credits and the earnest money. So when you're submitting your offer along with the purchase price, if you know your particular buyers are going to be a little thin on cash because they need cash to actually close the transaction, anywhere from about, anywhere 2 to 3.5%, whatever it may be. Like, and they don't have that in their bank account, and they may not have that in their bank account in 30 or 60 days when you close. That's when you're going to go ahead and put closing credits down here, where you're asking the seller ahead of time to go ahead and at the closing table, give your buyers some money to close. All right. But keep in mind, what the seller cares about is the net price, right? So that if let's say it's a $200,000 condo, you offer $200,000, you ask for $2,000 back. really in the seller's eyes, they're looking at that as 198,000 net to them. So you have to be cognizant of that and keep in mind how you're going to negotiate, because anything you're going to ask for, they're going to maybe want to negotiate that back into the price. And over a 30-year loan, that's okay, because your buyers over 30 years, $2,000 in this example isn't a whole lot, but in 30 days, it is a lot to them. So you just have to be strategic about it. And when you do seller credits, speak with the lender before you make the offer to make sure that you can do that, because for every certain kind of loan and every certain percentage, a lender is only going to allow a seller credit of X amount of dollars compared to the purchase price and the percentage of the loan. So just always consult with your mortgage lender if you're going to put in a credit that you're kind of questioning whether or not it's going to work. Earnest money. So earnest money is important as well. So it's a deposit that your buyer is going to make to the seller, being like, I am serious. I want to see this thing to the closing table. And if I do anything outside of the contract that doesn't allow us to close, you get to keep my money. That's how serious I am, Mr. Seller, about making this deal with you. Earnest money can fluctuate. Usually I advise clients 2 to 3% of the final sale price or their offer price should be what you put down for earnest money. Lots of times I just make it clean. If it's around a $300,000 purchase, and I know my clients have it, I'll be like, put down $10,000. It looks good. It shows you're serious. Nobody wants to lose $10,000. So if you have it in the bank, just do that. Higher end properties, when you're getting, 500 and over, closer to $1 million, sometimes I see that earnest money closer to 5% of the purchase price, depending on, what the situation is. Because once you start getting into the higher price points, the seller is probably getting a lot of offers from buyers with decent amount of money. So, a $1 million home with a $5,000 or $10,000 earnest money probably won't look so hot. So you'll want that to be closer to 5%. Okay. Oh yeah, and then there's additional earnest money. A lot of agents like to do that. They'll put like half the earnest money up front at signing. So like, $2,000, and then you'll get $8,000 after the attorney review is over. And we'll talk about attorney review. However you want to do it it's okay. I've seen it all different ways. At the bottom of every page in the contract, your buyers are going to initial. If there's one buyer, they initial. If there's two of them, they both initial. All right. It's very self-explanatory. They're always going to initial on the left-hand side of the contract. The sellers are always going to initial on the right. Okay. Typically, you're going to always check the seller's brokerage. That's who's going to hold on to the earnest money. Some brokerages don't hold on to earnest money. We here at Keller Williams don't hold on to their earnest money, or at least at Keller Williams, Chicago, and here in Lakeview. I don't know all about Lincoln Park, but eventually, very soon, we're all going to be one as far as these processes go. And so if the seller's brokerage doesn't hold it, you can always hold it at your brokerage. Well, you can't, but some people can. And then you can also do third party, and that just means the attorney, one of the attorneys can hold on to it. And that's what I usually do. Okay. Next paragraph is closing. You're going to want to pick a closing date that is going to be at least 30 days out from the day of acceptance. And always the closing date, you'll want to make sure it doesn't end on a week, doesn't fall on a weekend, and it doesn't fall on a national holiday. And I'm always careful, even like if it's not a holiday, I don't want a closing to happen the day before like Thanksgiving break, because the agents, the buyers and the sellers, the attorneys, the title office people, they're already on vacation, or at least mentally, they're already gone. So just be careful. Whenever I put on a closing date, I open my Google Calendar and I just look. I look out in the future, and see what day can this close where it will not potentially be a pain in the butt. So I go about it that way too. Okay. Next paragraph just states that unless otherwise stated, the buyer will receive the home, will possess the home on the closing date unless otherwise specified. Okay, financing. This is a really important paragraph. Paragraph 7 is financing. And it's going to go all the way halfway down to page 3. So it takes an entire page, more than an entire page. So your first option is more often than not, you're gonna click option A, which is loan contingency. You're telling the seller that your buyer, this sale is contingent on their loan being approved. Very, 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 very common, right? Almost everyone is going to use a loan. If you're in that 10% who doesn't, congrats, that's awesome. So you're going to always have your buyer sign an initial right here in these first 2 left-hand spots for the loan contingency. All right. And in the language, it says the loan is contingent no later than 45 days after the date of acceptance or 5 days prior to the date of closing. So they're saying that your buyer has 45 days to get their loan approved. Any lender worth, their value is going to get it done in 30 or less, or just around there. Sometimes it can even close in 20, depending on what their workload is, right? But always know that if your loan officer isn't closing deals in 30 days, you should probably be looking for a different loan officer, right? And then I'm just talking your typical, regular, conventional deal. FHA, I would bake in about 40 to 45 days. This next line on line 60 in this same paragraph, this is what kind of gets people forget these sometimes just because they're going through the contract. But all the meat and potato of this paragraph is in these next few lines. You're always going to want to check if it's a fixed mortgage or if it's adjustable mortgage. All right. And then once you check one of those, you're going to check, is it a conventional, an FHA, a VA, or USDA? I've never checked USDA, but if you're in this business long enough, all of us will be checking one of these 3 boxes, right? If it's a conventional loan, an FHA loan, or a VA loan, and that will be given to you on the pre-approval letter from your buyer's lender. Okay. The next line is they want you to put the amount of the loan. A lot of people, and I catch myself doing this sometimes accidentally when I'm rushing through it too much, they'll put the down payment amount right here. So let's say the down payment from the buyer is 20%. You'll see them write 20% in this line. That's not correct. You'll want to put 80%. Or if they're putting 5% down, you put 95% down. Just remember that. Sometimes we're so focused on getting this contract sent in and we'll make little mistakes like that. It's not a big deal if you do, but try to get it right off the beginning. Then you go down to the next line, and the next blank line here, it says percentage per annum. Okay. So they're just talking about, hold on. They're just talking about how many, what's the interest rate, right? And so I've seen people they'll put the interest rate that's on the lender's pre-approval letter. That's fine. Or let's say right now we're sitting at like 2.65% for a conventional loan. You'll maybe put like 2.75, not to exceed. All right. This is not written in blood. But what I like to do, I'll just write in market rate. I know some people don't like that, but typically nobody has a problem with it. I just put market rate. And then the next line is amortized over less than how many years? Is it a 30-year loan, 20-year loan, 15-year loan? Pretty self-explanatory. All right. Then the next line, if you don't know, just leave it blank. They can go ahead, the attorneys can adjust that later if need be. but these are talking about discount points. All right. So your buyer is getting a loan for X amount of dollars, but are they getting this loan and its rate because they paid extra to get the rate lower? Because that all affects what's happening on the back end too. So you want to make sure, let's say they're paying, 1%, then you'll put 1%, but just leave that blank for the most part and you'll be fine. All right. A lot of this stuff is a lot of legal jargon here. I always go through it, understand it, but let's just move on. The next option is cash transaction with no mortgage. So we just talked about what we do if there's a mortgage. Now this part we're going to talk about if it's just pure cash. Easy. You just initial it. People are buying cash. They'll get the property in less time. The last option here is option C, cash transaction, mortgage allowed. So this is saying that we are offering you cash, but before closing, if we decide, we being the buyer, you're representing the buyer, we decide that we want to use a mortgage instead. There's a lot of people that you're going to come across. They'll have their hands in a lot of different honeypots financially. And as you get closer to the close date, they might find business-wise for them, for their own dollars and cents, it makes more sense. You know what? I don't want to pay full cash. I'm gonna finance some of this. And then they have the option to do that. So you're showing you have the cash to close, full cash, but you're telling them, hey, I may use a mortgage. All right. Hold on. Okay.
Hey, Eric.
Sorry. I'm seeing stuff that people are writing. Jim P, no lining through unused paragraphs. No, I mean, some people do that. I don't do that because that just adds more work when that's the case. Now, I will put an A, not applicable in some cases, like the seller credits. If I'm not asking for seller credits, I'll put NA, just because I really want to enforce that, hey, this is a good term. I'm not asking your seller for credits. But no, I do not redline every single line through the contract. That would make me pull my hair out. So, and then most of the offers I receive, they don't redline them either. I have seen them, but more often it's like an X will do through the whole paragraph, but it's not necessary, in my opinion and in my experience. Okay. The next paragraph is statutory disclosures. Let's just take a quick little pause here. When I say disclosures, if you don't know what they are, can you let me know now so I can explain them? Okay, so I'm going to assume everybody knows what I mean when I'm referring to the. Is there a time frame by which there's any time? Hey, bud, if someone wants to change from a cash offer to finance, or a time frame by which when such change must be made, or is it any time? But then you must X. You know what, Manny? Manny's asking if you change it from a cash offer to a finance offer, is there a certain amount of time that has to happen? I don't know the exact time. I'm sure there are deadlines involved in that. And if that were the case, I mean, you would have to do it at least 5 days before closing, right? But once those wheels start getting in motion, I would advise you to speak with your attorney to, get the closing date extended if need be, if that's what's going to come up. Always, if you have any questions about this when you're actually in this doing it, always go to your attorney. I don't have that answer, Manny. Sorry. Statutory disclosures, paragraph 8. Okay, so typically you're going to have to check almost all of these boxes. First, let's talk about the residential real property disclosure. Unless you're buying this as is, they are obligated to give you this, and you check the has. You have received it. The next one is the pamphlet for lead paint. You, as the real estate agent, are obligated by law to give your clients the lead paint pamphlet, which tells them about the hazards of lead paint and why you shouldn't mess with it. You shouldn't digest it or stick it in your mouth or whatever you're going to do with lead paint. Just don't do it. So you're telling the other side that, yes, I told my sellers it's dangerous and they need to watch out for it. Next. What's up? Next one is the lead-based paint disclosure. That's just the disclosure where the other side is telling you they know of lead or they don't know of lead in the home. And so you probably will have received that if it was built 1978 or before and clicked has. Okay. Next line is radon. Okay, this is the radon pamphlet, like the lead pamphlet. You let your clients know radon could be in the home. It's up to them to investigate it further. I always recommend that my clients who aren't buying in the third level of a condo or higher, they always should get checked for radon. There's homes where I'm like thinking there's probably not radon in this house, and there's radon in that house, or I'm like, oh, there's probably radon here, just because like you'll see like foundational cracks. You know it's an old home. It's in a part of Illinois that is more susceptible to radon, and then there won't be radon. It's $200 out of your client's pocket, or if you want to pay for it, you could, but I'd suggest your clients do. It's just peace of mind. You don't want someone in their family moving into a home that has radon, because the seller, it's on them to remediate it in full without any money coming from your side. So it's $200 well spent. And then the last line is just the disclosure of radon. The seller's telling you if they know they have it or not. Okay, so paragraph 9, prorations. These are talking about all prorations that are going to happen at the closing table. The first off would be the tax proration. Because we don't know what the previous year's tax bill is when we're submitting an offer to purchase a home, we have no idea what the tax bill is going to be when our buyer owns the home. They're going to get billed for a time that they didn't own the home. So the safest way to do it, we always know here in Cook County, in Lake County, and everywhere, taxes are always going to go up, right? So it's standard thinking that in and around Chicago and its suburbs, this number here is going to be 105 to 110%. You're going to ask for 110%, knowing that the other side, unless they're asleep at the wheel, will most likely bring it down to 105%. Okay? So I'll always offer with 110. Usually I'll offer with 110, knowing it's going to get dropped down to 105. But sometimes if I know we're going to be close as far as getting an offer accepted, I'll just advise my clients, just put it down for 105, because we're asking for, 6%, 8% under list on a brand new hot listing. I wouldn't do that, but you understand what I mean. I mean, it's a part of the negotiation. If I want my offer to stand out from the beginning, I might just put 105, knowing they're going to make me do that anyway. All right. The next paragraph here, you can write NA, Jim, here if you're not doing a condo or townhome. But this has to do with homeowners associations. And even if it's not a condo or a townhome, some houses in certain subdivisions are part of an HOA. But if it's not part of an HOA, just type NA here. But when it is, what this is talking about, they're talking about the dues that are owed by the seller as they're outgoing, as they're leaving the property. So let's say we close on a condo tomorrow. Tomorrow's the 30th. But we know this owner won't be billed until November 5th. That's what this is talking about here. How much they're going to be billed for, how much you're going to receive. You're going to receive that bill in 6 days as the new homeowner. You just want to make sure that seller is giving you that money at the closing table. So you're paying for when they live there. Does that make sense? Okay. The next part is talking about attorney review. Attorney review, for those of you who may not know, is a really important part of the contract. Attorney review begins the day after a contract becomes accepted, becomes when both sides sign it. So let's say we both come to an agreement today, starting tomorrow, October 5th, there's 5 business days of attorney review, 5 business days. So that would mean next Thursday is the last day of attorney review. And during attorney review is when you are scheduling the home inspection. I schedule the home inspection immediately at acceptance. I call my inspectors. If one can't do it, I go to my other guys and just see who can get them in on a scheduled day with my home buyers so they can do the home inspection, because then you get that home inspection back during attorney review. And if there's something that you need fixed, repaired, addressed, or you want money back after the home inspection, that all happens during this 5-day attorney review. Now, I know a lot of home buyers see this 5 days and they kind of get scared. They're like, that doesn't sound like a lot of days. And so I always intervene and say, look, it's 5 days, but we have our attorney, they have their attorney, and they will work to extend this. Because lots of times it takes a few more than 5 days to negotiate post-inspection items, because there's a lot going on. There's just a lot of disagreement. Sometimes the seller may think they don't owe you anything, or they don't owe you what you're asking. And just, you can always get it extended. Do your best to not have it continually keep getting extended, because the more attorney review gets extended, and once you get past like 10 days, then you're getting into like 2-week territory. Then you're getting into 3-week territory, and you're getting close to the loan approval territory. And that's when deals have a tendency to fall apart, because you've been at it now for 3 weeks or so, and both sides still can't come to an agreement, where in other cases the parties would have by now. So lots of times that comes into like personality, right? So you really have to work with your buyer to make sure we don't drag on attorney review, because that's when just people start getting pissed. Okay. So that's really important. And if you get to the end of attorney review, or if it keeps getting extended and it doesn't happen, an agreement cannot happen, the contract gets disapproved. All right. It gets canceled by the attorneys. Both sides sign a mutual cancellation agreement, and your buyer, gets their earnest money back. All right. Always make sure they understand, until attorney review is done, they will get their earnest money back if agreement over the inspection items cannot come to terms. People think, oh my God, I'm never going to get my earnest money back. This contract has been established to protect the buyers and the sellers from beginning to end. So even if it doesn't come to fruition, if all the rules were played by in the contract, you're going to get your earnest money back. It has to be something extreme. You're out of attorney review, the loan's been approved, and your seller or the buyer just feels, you know what, I don't want to buy it anymore. I don't feel like buying a house today. Like, that's when they're not going to see their earnest money back. Okay. Paragraph 11, waiver of professional inspections. That's where you sign here if your buyer doesn't want to have a home inspection. I don't ever recommend you doing that. There's some cases you would, if you know the buyer's just going to tear the house down, and you know it's not sitting on, like a soiled piece of land or something. But 99.9% of the time, just do not waive that inspection. So paragraph 12 is kind of just what we were talking about. It's tied directly with attorney review. It's professional inspections, inspection notices. They're talking about the home inspection. That is your opportunity to go ahead and get the home inspected. Well, if you want to look for lead paint, if you want to look for radon, if you want to, look for mold, whatever you may want to do if you think there's reason to inspect for certain things, this is when you go ahead and do that. So we're going to skip past that. Paragraph 13 talks about homeowners insurance. They're saying by law that you're a homeowner, you need to go get insurance. If for whatever reason you go to multiple insurance providers and they cannot provide you insurance because they do not deem you, I keep saying you, your buyers, an insurable bet, they don't think you're someone who should be insured, then the contract will get canceled and terminated, and your buyer will get their earnest money back because the loan is contingent. The deal is contingent on the loan being approved. No loan can be approved by any lender without home insurance. So that's another safeguard to get your money back. Flood insurance, they're saying that if this home exists in a floodplain, you need to go ahead and get flood insurance. As you work in this business more and more and you get comfortable with the neighborhoods and the towns that you're working in, you're going to understand, you're going to have a pretty good idea ahead of time if the home is or is not in a floodplain. But always do the research. You can find out on the MLS if a home is in a floodplain. So even before seeing the home, you'll want to give your buyers a heads up and be like, just so you know, it's a great house, great neighborhood, plenty of other people love living here, but you will have to get flood insurance. Is that something you're comfortable with? You just have to be, always on top of that. So just so they're not surprised later when their lender tells them, oh, by the way, you need to get flood insurance. And they'll be like, why didn't my agent, Eric, tell me this? Because Eric didn't look. So you should look. Okay, next paragraph talks about HOAs and condo associations. Every HOA and condo association is going to have their own set of rules and regulations. And these rules and regulations, while they're not on this 13-page contract, they need to be adhered to. So this paragraph is saying, once you get this under contract, the attorney is going to request the documents from the seller, the seller's condo association, and he or she is going to go over them. And he or she will go over them with your buyer. And if the buyer is not agreeing to whatever these, legacy rules and regulations are within the association, then this deal cannot go through. All right, because the HOA doesn't want to inherit someone who's not going to be happy living by the rules that they've already established. So for example, let's say your buyer has 2 dogs and it was marketed that you can have as many dogs in the condo as you want. There's no limitation. Then we go under contract. Then the attorney does some research and the association's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You can only have 1 dog. It can only weigh 15 pounds. That's going to be a deal breaker for your buyers. So that's why this is in here. So the attorney representing your buyers is making sure that he's looking through all the fine print of the condo association to make sure this is somewhere your people really want to live. Okay. So that's what that whole paragraph is really getting down to. Paragraph 16, the deed. This is simply saying the transfer of ownership comes with a deed. At the closing table, your buyers are going to get the deed, right? The deed is the piece of paper, really, where title is they call it the theory. Title doesn't really physically exist, but it's the instrument where it does exist, the piece of paper is the deed. They're saying you're going to get that, all right? The buyers are going to get that. Okay, the next one is municipal, next paragraph 17, municipal ordinance, transfer tax, and governmental compliance. So this is saying outside of the agreement between buyer and seller, outside of the agreement between buyer and HOA, there's also other governing bodies involved. So the village or city of Chicago, the state, the county, all these third parties, you have to adhere to their rules of home ownership too, and that's what they're talking about. And they're also talking about transfer tax in there. So in different cities and different states, when ownership transfers hands, sometimes there's transfer tax involved. Sometimes it's paid by the buyer, sometimes it's paid by the seller, sometimes it's paid by both. It changes from city to city, town to town. Sometimes there's no transfer tax in certain villages. Okay, the next one has to do with title. Okay, and so what this is saying here is that your attorney is going to go comb, the title office is going to go comb through the title and make sure that you're buying the home free and clear, that there are no lingering issues tied to the property, that there are no liens from previous owners, and they're going to ensure you that you're buying this free and safe, and you're not going to have to deal with other people's problems should they be discovered going forward. That's why, that's another reason we don't close real estate transactions in 2 days. There's a lot of homework that the attorneys in the title office people do in the background to make sure everything is taken care of and addressed before the closing table. So it's just a matter of signatures and walking away with keys on the day of. All right. Paragraph 19 is plat of survey. That's just saying that under most circumstances, unless it's negotiated otherwise, the seller is the one that goes ahead and provides a recent current survey for the buyer. So they have that, and the buyer receives that at the closing table on the day of the close. And I believe it is, it actually says here, it needs to be 6 months or prior. So it can't be from a year ago. It can't be the same survey that they had when they received 20 years ago when the seller bought the home. And obviously, also survey, it's talking about single family home or an entire building. If you're buying a condo, your buyers are not going to get a survey. Paragraph 20, damage to real estate or condemnation prior to closing. This paragraph is simply stating that should a catastrophe happen to the property in between the day you go under contract to when you close, your buyer is off the hook from going forward. So I give an example. I had a closing in July, and there was a terrible, if you remember, it was July or August, and there was like a microburst where like the weather just went to shit, like in like 10 minutes, and then it was fine, and the sun was out in the afternoon. We had our final walkthrough that evening around 5 o'clock. We pull up to the house, and there is an enormous tree lying on top of the house. Luckily, thank God, there was no damage. The seller had the tree removed that next day. The roof inspector came by and said everything was fine. We could still close. But had we driven up to that house and the tree was through the roof, through the house, that's what this paragraph is about. Or if there's an electrical shortage and the fire happens in the house. So if anything terrible happens to the house before you end up with the keys, you don't have to go forward. You being the buyer, I keep doing that. Your buyer doesn't have to go forward. And condemnation, right? Let's say the government wants to come in and take that piece of property through eminent domain, then you don't have to buy that property because there'll be a freeway running through it. Okay, the next one is condition of real estate inspections. It says seller agrees to leave the real estate in broom clean condition. This is talking about the final walkthrough. You do not want to walk into a final walkthrough. The house looked all pretty and nice when you went under contract, and then 29, 30 days later, there's holes in the wall. The stove is missing. Talking about page 1 with the personal property, you want to make sure the home is in great condition, just like you thought it would be. And even if like it's just a total mess and they didn't take the time to go in there after the cleaners left and cleaned it for you, like even casually, like you can go into the closing table, depending on, what you and your attorney decide on, you can be like, look, I want you to leave $200 in an escrow account when we leave this closing table, because I'm going to have to go patch up the hole in the wall that your movers left when they, took your water bed out of the room, this is just making sure that the home is in nice condition, and the movers and or the sellers or a tenant didn't royally mess it up on their exit from the property. Okay. Paragraph 22, seller, where are we at? Okay, we're at 2:00. I'm sorry. I don't know if this was supposed to be an hour long. I apologize, but the rest of this stuff does move relatively quickly. If you have to leave, you have to leave. This is being recorded. I apologize it's taking so long. Seller representations here. So this is this is talking about what the seller knows or doesn't know about the property as it's being transferred over to you. So as the buyer's agent, you will go ahead and check these 4 boxes that are assigned at the first space. You leave the onus on the buyer to tell you otherwise. All right. So here, for example, the seller further represents that there are improvements to the real estate, which I'm sorry, are not. You want to check the second box, man. I apologize. Are not improvements to the real estate, which are not included in the determination of the most recent tax assessment. Okay, so that's saying, okay, oh man, this tax bill looks great. It's $2,000 a month. But what you want to make sure is that it includes the addition that they just threw on 6 months earlier, because it hasn't been assessed for that yet either. All right. And so basically you're looking out for your buyers by checking these boxes to make sure that there's no hidden increased pricing coming their way from governing bodies that you need to account for. There are not improvements to the real estate which are eligible for home improvement tax exemption. There is not an unconfirmed pending special assessment affecting the real estate by any association or government entity. Okay, so that's saying if it's part of a homeowners association, is there a certain project down the pipeline in a year or 6 months, whatever it may be, that we need to know about coming in? Because if there's a $40,000 project to fix a roof in 6 months, my buyers need to know about that, and they shouldn't be on the hook to pay for that. Like, the seller needs to help them out as they're leaving the piece of property. So that's all this stuff is in this paragraph. You just want to make sure you click are not, is not. You click the second box and you make their side show their cards. Okay. All righty. Next paragraph is real estate tax escrow. They're talking about any property that has been improved upon but hasn't been reassessed yet. They haven't gotten their new updated tax bill. Let's say there was a $200,000 home sitting on a quarter-acre lot a year ago, and now today you're buying $1 million home on that same size lot. Obviously, the taxes will increase the next time they reassess them. And this is saying that they want to make sure that there's 3% thrown into an escrow account, half by the buyer, half by the seller, for any increase. And I say 3% of the purchase price for any increased tax bill that's going to come down the pipeline. All right. And if the tax bill comes back and it's higher, then the seller is going to get their difference back. If it's lower, then the seller is going to go ahead and you're going to take what they gave you. So that's what that is. That is securing the buyer to make sure when the tax bill gets increased down the road, because they know it will, that's taken into account for. Paragraph 24, business days and hours. We only do real estate Monday through Friday, 8 to 6. not on holidays. Paragraph 25, electronic or digital signatures. This is just saying that you can go ahead and e-sign. It's 2020. Direction to escrowery. This is saying, should a deal, there's a lot of stuff written in here, but the gist of it is saying, should a deal not go ahead and eventually close, it gets mutually terminated. The escrowery, whoever that is, whether it be the seller's brokerage, the buyer's brokerage, or the attorney, disperse the money to where it needs to go. Give back the earnest money. Okay, a lot of this is, we don't need to keep going through that stuff. Okay. Performance, paragraph 28, time is of the essence in this contract. This is just stating in language, legal language, that don't drag your feet. Like, deadlines on this contract matter. The other side, it matters when you reply to them. So be timely in your responses, and people don't drag your feet. You know, we have a closing date to close by. There's a date that the loan needs to be approved by. There's a date when attorney review needs to be accepted or extended. They're telling people to be professionally courteous, because you're going to find out a lot of people just are not professionally courteous. It's unfortunate, but you can't control other people's actions. But this contract tries to tell them, hey, be professionally courteous. Okay, paragraph 29, confirmation of dual agency. You have the buyers and sellers sign when you are representing them both. If not, just leave that blank. You don't have to X through it. You don't have to redline it, Jim. Just leave it alone. Okay, this stuff's important. The sale of the buyer's real estate. Give me 1 second, please. I've been talking a lot. Okay, sale of a buyer's real estate. One of the most important terms you're going to have representing your buyer is, are they also selling a home? Is the sale of your buyer's home, the home that they own and live in now, is that contingent on them buying the home that you're making an offer for on this piece of paper? Okay, if it is, then you go ahead and have your buyers initial that. All right. If they own a home, this is a question I get a lot. If they own a home, but it is not contingent on buying their next home, you can leave this blank. And Jim, I have seen people put an X through this entire paragraph to make that perfectly clear. Don't worry about this, Mr. Seller. This isn't your concern. So anyway, this is only when you have a home that has to be sold. Okay. So you're going to put the address here. Then in the next few lines in bullet point 2, you have the option. It says buyer has entered into a contract to sell buyer's real estate, or buyer has not entered into a contract to sell buyer's real estate. That is saying, is your buyer under contract today with another home buyer to buy their home? Your buyer acting as the seller, do they have a buyer under contract to buy their home? You're going to check has or has not entered into this contract. Okay, let's say you checked has not. Then you skip on and don't worry about these 3 boxes here. Let's say you do have that contract. Okay, the next language says if a buyer has entered into a contract to sell buyer's real estate, that contract is or is not subject to a mortgage contingency. Is that transaction subject to a mortgage contingency? There's a chance that there would be. So your buyer is selling their home. Does their buyer need to secure a mortgage, or are they buying cash? If they're not using cash, you have to check is, where I've highlighted it blue. So think of it this way. Like, there's a lot of different players here, and there's multiple dominoes. There's your buyer, who's also a seller. There's the seller whose house they want to buy. And then if I had a third hand, there'd be someone trying to buy their home, and they all need to topple over for your buyer to eventually buy this home that we're writing the contract on. I hope that makes sense. I know it can be confusing. The next one is, if the buyer has entered into the contract, is it or is it not subject to a real estate sale contingency? Okay, so let's kind of skip ahead though first. The next one says, is it or is it not subject to a real estate closing contingency? All that line is saying is this home buyer over here who's buying your buyer's / seller's home, are they under contract too? Do they need to close on their home to buy that home? Because if they do, then that has to close before you can buy this home. There's all these dominoes, and it can go on theoretically infinitely. So you, as a real estate professional, just have to be careful on what you're submitting on behalf of your buyer. And when you're representing a seller, you have to be very cognizant of what's coming in and being offered to you, because you want to make sure you don't want deals that are tied up with an infinite amount of contingencies going this way, because you may never close, right? You may get an offer that's of lower price, but they don't have to sell anything. Then you can skip all of this and just walk away, and your client can walk away happy with a house. So you just have to be careful. So that's what that is. They have to close. All right. And then the line, why did I skip the line above it? Because it's talking about the real estate sale contingency. So there's the closing contingency, you have to close on it, but do they even have a contract tied to the house, tied to it yet? The sale contingency. Because if you have a house listed and you don't even have it under contract yet, that's what the sale contingency means. It's under contract. Like that's problematic, because God only knows when you could get that contract, right? So the moral of the story is, if possible, try to avoid, closing contingencies, but they're unavoidable. So you just have to know how to maneuver around them and look at every offer, like with your spectacles on, and make sure you're looking at it the right way. Okay. Next one says, buyer, your client again, has or has not publicly listed the real estate for sale with a licensed real estate broker in the MLS. So in that line, I hope you have checked has. The home is already on the market to be sold. Because when you check has not, you're telling this seller, I'm giving you an offer and I can't buy your home until I sell my home, but I haven't even put my home on the market yet. So they are not going to like that offer, right? So I hope that you have this box checked has, because if your buyer hasn't put their home on the market and they need to, you should probably consider maybe even not making that offer, because you want to wait till it's on the market and you have someone on the hook, because sometimes you only have one chance to get a seller's attention. This could potentially, get the wrong kind of attention, right? So that's my 2 cents there. Oops. All right. And so then the next part goes on to, if they haven't went ahead and if your buyers haven't listed their home yet for sale, then you go into the details of when they plan to do it. Who are they using? You, I hope. If it is not you, why is it not you? Maybe they don't live in state. I don't know. But so that's what that goes on to talk about. And the last one says, your buyer does not intend to list said real estate for sale. That means they're probably trying to go ahead and sell it for sale by owner, or some other weird little funky mechanism like that. And I would not want to submit that offer on behalf of that buyer, because it will not get accepted. So, and you probably don't want to work with a home buyer that refuses to use you or any other real estate agent for that matter to list the home they need to sell for the offer that they're submitting, that you're submitting on their behalf. They're not putting you in a very strong, advantageous position. You never want anyone to check this box. That would be, just not good news. Okay. All right. So the next part is contingencies based on sale or closing of real estate. We went over a lot of this up top. And so now we were just up here talking about your buyer in their role as a seller. Now, this next page, we're back on your role as the buyer of the home on this contract. Does that make sense? Does it? I know this is confusing. If anyone's got questions, please just unmute yourself and let me know. But this next one you're back wearing your client's wearing their buyer hat. They're buying this house. Okay. This contract is contingent upon buyer having entered into a contract for the sale of the buyer's real estate that is in full force and effect as of blah date. Okay, so this is saying, oh my God. Ugh. This is saying, okay, hold on. I may have messed something up here. Contracts could go by hand contract. Notice okay, this is saying that the buyer has entered into the contract to sell his house by X date. All right, right here on this line. Okay, on the next line it says, in the event the buyer has entered into a contract for the sale of buyer's real estate set forth in paragraph 30B1, and in that contract is in full force and effect, or has entered into a contract for the sale of the buyer's real estate prior to the execution of this contract is contingent on buyer closing the sale on the buyer before X date. So hold on, I'm having trouble here. It's entering contract for the sale of the buyer's. Hold on, sorry. Okay, yeah, so I got the two lines mixed up. This is about the close. This is when your closing date is your role as a seller, so I apologize. And up here is when you need to go into contract buy. So if you want to go ahead and buy this house, you're telling the seller that you will have a contract by X date and you will have it closed by X date. And if you don't meet those dates, then the seller can cancel on you. All right, so I apologize. Okay, and so let's say you go ahead and you go through that and you come to those dates and it still hasn't happened. The seller, in the meanwhile, is going ahead and he or she is still listing the home. They're marketing it. They're letting people come in and see it. They're doing open houses. And so if they get another offer, chances are it's an offer that isn't a contingent offer. It's somebody who can just come in and buy the house. Then they're going to give you, your buyer, X hours. Usually it's 24 or 36 hours to drop all your contingency rights, meaning that your buyer is feeling confident enough that they want this house so much and that they can float a mortgage for just a few months or whatever it may be, and they're working with you to drop the price on their current house to get a buyer, your buyer can go ahead and drop and waive their contingency rights so they don't lose out on this house. And that is called the kickout clause. It says it right here, the kickout clause. So a seller can always kick out any contingent buyer if they get an offer that they deem more favorable at any point. And so then it's up to your buyer to waive that if they'd like that. Hence, waiver of contingencies. All right. Okay, we're off that part now. On to cancellation of prior real estate contract. This is saying if you're making an offer on this home, but you've already made an offer elsewhere and you're under contract elsewhere, I don't think that's a great practice to get into for home buyers. But for whatever reason, if that is the case, you're telling this seller that you're going to cancel with the other seller in due time, in fast time, I should say. So they know that they're only in bed with you and you're not in bed with someone else. The next part is the home warranty. The home warranty is going to cover everything from, and not everything including, and not always including, but sometimes including more, like your kitchen appliances, your mechanicals, your roof, and a myriad of other things. So home warranties usually cost anywhere from like $600 to maybe even a little more, considering on how many options somebody may put onto it. But what a home warranty does, it allows a buyer to go into the home that first year, and if they know some of the stuff is older, it's kind of like insurance for your appliances. So they'll be able to get a handyman come in, do some repairs to it to prolong the life of the appliance. Sometimes maybe in some home warranties, you can get even like items replaced if you're, if it's a high-end home warranty, but usually not. It's more just like, it's a little extra added benefit that a buyer can get walking into a home that they have an idea after the home inspection may have some problems. Not problems, but has some age. And so if they're afraid that in 6 months their stove may die, they may ask the seller to get them a home warranty. And you can ask that from a seller. Sometimes in negotiations, if things are close, things are, almost there, but you can't come over like the finish line, a home warranty sometimes may do it because, the buyers are getting something and it's not a huge dollar amount for the seller to do it. Like I said, it's like $600 or so. Sometimes the agents, like myself and the other agent, will go in and chip in if you can see both sides are just kind of exhausted and you just want to get this thing out of attorney review and closed. Next paragraph is well or sanitary system inspections. My mouse is not working here. God. Well or sanitary system inspections. We're Chicago agents. We're not going to have to deal with this in Chicago proper, but you're going to get clients that want to look in and around the suburbs, especially when you're getting out into Lake County and farther out into Page County, or God forbid, if you're going out to Kane or somewhere else, you're going to start getting into well and septic systems. You can start getting into them in farther outreaches of Northwest Cook even, or unincorporated areas of Cook and Lake County. You're going to see this. So this is all, you're just going to have your people initial here, and you're telling, along with the home inspection and the radon inspection, you want a licensed well and septic guy to make sure that that stuff's working, it's safe, and it's not leaking hazardous materials into the soil. Wood destroying infestation. This is saying that if you're in a property and you think you may have cause for concern that there's termite, there's insect, there's bug action going on here, you're going to have your buyer sign that, and you're going to ask the seller to have that inspected on their behalf. I don't really check this off just because, knock on wood, luckily I haven't seen many properties that have that. But if you see it, you're going to know it. And if you're not even sure, just sign it anyway. have your people sign it, especially if you're kind of out, not so much in the city, but if you're farther out and it's a pretty wooded area and there might be like some visual evidence of it, you should sign it. All right. FHA will have to get it inspected regardless. FHA loans. Okay, possession after closing. This has to do with what's called a leaseback. So let's say your buyer wants to close, has agreed to close on the home, say November 15th. They close on the home. The title is in their name. They own the home. They're paying taxes on it. They're paying utilities on it from that day forward. But let's say the seller who they're buying it from cannot physically leave the home on the 15th. Let's say they are getting transferred out of state to a new job. That job doesn't start till December 1st. Or they're building a new home down the street. It's not going to be done until March. They need somewhere to live. If it works with your buyer can stay where they're living for the time being, if they're okay doing that, and they essentially become the landlord of the seller. They're not really a landlord, but it acts in the same way. They're acting as the landlord now of the seller. The seller's still living in their house that they no longer own, but you are paying the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance. So you're going to have that seller live there longer. They're going to put money into an escrow account. It's essentially their renter's security deposit. Here they say a good recommendation is 2% of the purchase price, right? So the seller's going to put money into an escrow account. They get that back when they move if everything's good. But while at the same time, they're paying you rent. Okay, so what would that rent be? You could go and look and see what rent's going for in that area and make it mirror that. You can pay them you can have them pay you exactly what your principal and your interest, your taxes and insurance costs, whatever you and your attorney and your family are comfortable and they agree to, they'll be paying you until they vacate the property. So eventually you just kind of reverse roles. You become a landlord for a few weeks or for a few months. We're almost done, guys. Paragraph 36, as is condition. So as far as the as is condition goes, you're just gonna initial that if they're telling you ahead of time that I'm selling this to you as is. We are not going to negotiate on home inspection items. Get your home inspection, feel comfortable knowing that there may be some issues, but we're not going to go ahead and go back and forth, and I'm not going to give you anything. I know that this place isn't the Ritz. You know it. You want it or you don't. That being said, so many times things are an as-is condition and people still try to negotiate. There's almost no way around it. I don't think it's a great business practice, but I think it's a worse business practice if you're representing a buyer and you don't give something a shot if you think you might be able to pull it off, even though it's as is. I had a buyer earlier this summer who bought an as is property. And I went into it explaining to him, we don't have any room to negotiate for home inspection. So just know that ahead of time. But we found some stuff in the home inspection. And it's really in my buyer's best interest for me to at least bring that up to the other side. And we did get money back, even though it was as is. So you have to do what's best for your clients, whoever you're representing at all times. But don't go nuts. If it's as is, don't go nuts and ask for everything, right? Don't ask for a new roof, a kitchen sink. You can do it, but they may tell you to fly a kite because someone else will just do it and not give them a hard time. Okay, specified party approval. This is just saying if there's somebody else besides the actual eventual homeowners, your buyers, that need to approve this. Maybe they have a silent business partner. Maybe they have, they're set up as some sort of business entity and they need people to sign off because for whatever business mechanism they need. You will very rarely have to really look at this line and think much about it. But if something comes up and it sounds like you've never heard it before, go ahead and consult your managing broker or attorney to see if this needs to be addressed. And I'll do the same because I've never checked that box. The rest is attachments. Are there any riders or anything that you're tying with the offer that needs to be pointed out? This is miscellaneous provisions. These are actual riders that they are pointing out. If any of these apply, you just check that off and include the rider with the offer. And then none of this is binding until both sides go ahead and sign. So like I said, your buyer throughout the contract is always going to initial on the left-hand side. And then it's no different when you get to the last page. So your buyer is going to go ahead and fill in the information here. I should say you should fill in the information here. Even though we have DocuSign and people can fill stuff in themselves if you give them that ability to do it, I like doing all of this for my buyers ahead of time. It says print buyer's name. I could have them print their own name and I could have them mess it up in DocuSign because technology can be wonky, or I could have them sign it in DocuSign and have them get annoyed that I didn't do it for them. I'm just going to do everything. I'm going to fill it all in and all they have to do is sign. I don't want them filling in anything. I want to make sure that I'm the one filling it in ahead of time. There's no typos. I have their middle initials. I have their correct address. And then I'm also going to go ahead and put in all my information, all Keller Williams information right here. And is one thing, one more helpful tip, ask for your MLS number, your state license number, Keller Williams, O'Hare or Lakeview, their MLS number, their MLS or their state license number. And none of us know what that is off the top of our head. But I keep it copied and pasted on a document on my computer, so I never even have to think about it. Okay? Because the busier and busier you get, you're going to fill more and more of these out, knock on wood. You want to get through the easy stuff fast. So I just have stuff ready to copy and paste. That goes also with like my attorneys. I'm going to fill in the attorney's info. If it's the attorney that I'm recommending, or if it's the attorney that my clients are recommending to me. We're like, my uncle's an attorney. I really want him to do this. I'm like, is he a real estate attorney? Yes, he's a real estate attorney. Fine. Uncle Bob can represent you. I'm going to go ahead and fill that in too. I just want this all filled out ahead of time. It looks better too when you're submitting it because they're like, oh, look, this agent actually took the time not to be a putz. He filled it out. And then down here is like the mortgage stuff too. The loan officer. I put your loan officer info all in there. And I have all, like, I just go into my contacts on my iPhone and copy and paste all this stuff in here, or on my contact book on my computer, I should say. And so when I get to this page and I've done all the other stuff, it's really fast. I just copy and paste almost everything that's just there for me to repeat. And so that is the contract. It usually takes me about an hour and a half to do this. So thank you for sticking around with me. I've been in other classes when people have taught this and it's taken like 3 hours. So hopefully this was a little more digestible than anything else. So are there any other questions? I know it's a lot and it's kind of confusing, especially when you've never even done one, which may be the case in some people.
I have a question. You know, in this market, obviously it's very competitive and there's a lot of highest and best calls. And unfortunately, sometimes clients, you know, our clients may not get that. Is there an opportunity for like a backup offer? I've heard some talk about that. Is there a place on here where you can write a backup offer to submit to them?
So you would just write their offer on here. And when they tell you, you know, like, sorry, we're already with someone, but like, they'll always tell you, almost always, I always do. I'll tell the buyer's agent, just give me your backup offer. And if something goes sideways, I'll reach out to you. So yeah, there's no certain little box that this is a backup offer. You know,
okay.
If that answers it.
Yeah, I think so.
Have you been in some multiple offer situations lately? It
Yeah.
sounds like I can hear the pain in your voice.
Yeah, a lot of them. I feel for my clients because they've been through some crazy situations as a result of some of these things. But I do finally have a contract for them and we just ended the A&I period today. So, but I think for future reference, it's good to know, because I have heard conversation about that, of like, getting it signed as a backup offer, and I didn't know what exactly that meant.
You know what? I mean, unless there's something I don't know about, as you see, I'm no expert because I definitely fumbled around those contingencies. So I do apologize about that little snafu back there. But if you haven't, you might want to speak. Which office are you out of?
I'm based in Lakeview.
Your Lakeview. So is Saladino still the de facto MB there?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to look into that more, ask him. But I'm 99% sure there's no special mechanism to do other than just give them the 13-page contract and hey, I'm here when you need me, So that's how that goes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, in this market, you don't get that call a lot when you submit a backup,
Mhm.
Unfortunately, just because they're happy with the offer that they got, or they would have taken yours, right?
Right.
Any other questions? All right. Well, if no one has any other questions, my number, I have no problem talking one-on-one with anyone. My number is 773-620-1111. Honestly, call me anytime you have a question about the contract, and more so when you're in a deal or you're about to put in an offer, if you're negotiating something and you can't get a hold of the managing broker, or you're more comfortable talking to me, if I'm available, I will take your call, or I'll make time to call you back. And this stuff, it's always very helpful for me talking to people too, because it helps me in my business talking this stuff over, hearing your points of view and whatnot as well. So if that's it, I'm going to go eat my lunch.
I have one.
Yes.
Well, one quick question.
Yes.
If you, as a buyer's broker, the listing agent says, we've received a higher offer, can you ask them to present that higher offer as proof?
You can, they won't, or they shouldn't, I should say. But really, when it comes down, I mean, I would definitely ask them, but they definitely probably wouldn't do it, right? So you just kind of have to take them on their word. But the thing about this industry, if you're in it, even I've only been doing this 4 years, right? Which is, in the grand scheme of things, not a long time. You keep running into the same people. So if that seller's agent is going to be, oh yeah, we have a much higher offer than yours, and they won't, and it's not his obligation, nor would I recommend he shows that to you. But if you have a gut feeling you're getting lied to, essentially, I mean, call it gamesmanship, call it whatever. He doesn't have to really show you his cards, but you'll probably run into him again at some point. And if you see patterns, people, us as a whole, a community, we kind of start seeing patterns from certain people over and over. And then, that's a good way to lose trust amongst your peers over time. So what I would do in that situation, I would ask him, he'll tell you no. And then I'll just be I just kind of sell myself. I'd be so easy to work with. Aside from my buyers being awesome, giving you this pretty strong offer, I will get you to the closing table. I'll make this easy for you. This will be win-win. Give me an idea of what maybe I might need to take back to my buyers so we could make this situation work out. Just, you got to build rapport with people. As early as me taking buyers into a home, I'm already building rapport with the listing agents. If they're there, I'm already trying to be their best friend. By the time the clock strikes midnight later that night, when I'm cordial with them in front of my buyers, I'm representing my buyers. But if I can see my buyers really like this house, I try to make an impression on myself to the other agent. So if everything's close, they're just going to want to work with me anyway, as opposed to someone who gave them another $2,000 on the offer or whatever it may be. That's my best advice there. Just get as much information as you can and then make your own decision if you think it's accurate what you're being told, right? So, okay. Anything else, guys? We good? All right. Well, I appreciate everyone taking the time. I know it's long. It's a long contract. So hopefully it was helpful. It is recorded. If you have any questions, give me a ring. All right. Later, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you.
Later. How do I end it?